What's going on, guys? I think in this episode we're going to work on putting in, mocking up the drive system. And I went to Roll King. Got me a roll of 50 chain, and that's going to go from the transmission to the axle. And we're going on this sprocket here. What I got there. I got a roll of 40 chain, and that centrifugal clutch is actually 40 chain. It is not 35 or whatever they said. That stuff's like bicycle chain. I took the centrifugal clutch with me, and I'm like, this is definitely 40 chain. So I don't know what they, what kind of, the site that they have that sells this clutch. I don't think they know what they're talking about, but. Also got, this is a weld-on sprocket, and then you buy the collet, that it goes to fit your shaft, and you just weld the sprocket to the shaft, or the collet. And then I got a 40 chain idler sprocket, and this is going to have to go up underneath the chain, and on some kind of spring-loaded thing. This turns the same direction all the time, so a spring-loaded deal is going to work great for it. I was not able to get, this is a 17-2 sprocket on the centrifugal clutch. This is an 18. I wasn't able to get exactly the same size to make it 1-to-1, but I don't think 1-2 is going to matter much. And I flipped the whole deal around. I flipped the centrifugal clutch backwards and put it on here, and I don't think it's going to make any difference which direction it turns. And this allowed me to get the engine over this way more, so that it's not not eating up the passengers leg or place to put their feet as much. It's pretty much the driver's side and passenger side is pretty much even as far as that goes. And then also flipping this thing around, put my alternator deal on the outside so that I could easily get this alternator mounted in here, facing the engine so it goes the right direction. And then for the tighten that belt, I'm just going to make it so the alternator just slides and tightens down, and just go with that. But this stuff's just setting in here. It's not fastened in or anything. I actually got a clamp holding the chain on, but just to kind of get some ideas. I definitely like this. It's working out. I think it's going to work out nice this way. I'm going to check the Saturn to see what it has for like the spring-loaded thing for the belt, and see if I can't put this sprocket on it. Or I just might make my own. It's not that big of a deal. And I also got a 50 chain idler for the back. As far as what, I got a weld-on sprocket, that collet, a 10-foot roll of 40 chain, a 10-foot roll of 50 chain, 2 idler sprockets, and it was like $75, I think, something like that. I actually looked this stuff on eBay, and it was cheaper to go to the store. They had some idler sprockets, and the bearing did not look very good, like it wouldn't hold up very long. So, and these was like $16-ish a piece. So on the back, I have the pillow block bearings, or 1.5-inch pillow block bearings. I have those ordered, they're just not here yet. And I started making my own sprocket hub. It's pretty much done. It just needs the hole drilled in the center. And I started making the hubs for the ends. The hubs on the wheels are just going to be slide on a stub, and then a bolt goes through. That's how I'm going to do those. And so I just need to make an axle and finish up the hubs. And I'm working on a chain tensioner for this, and pretty much what it is going to be is a a round piece of tubing, this like 1/2 inch wall, and then there's a solid piece of bar inside of it, and then it'll have a set bolt that goes into the side of it, and then the other end I have a hex head, so that you just loosen up the set bolt, and then you can turn the other side of it. And pretty much how this will be is this will be down in there, and it'll just turn it like this, be cammed basically. And you know, I'll run a chain around there, run it around the sprocket, and then this will be underneath, and it'll just cam like this to tighten the chain up. I don't have any of those things I'm working on here, but you'll see them later, probably maybe even in this video. But I like this idea here. I think it's going to work out great. Alright, it's been about a week since the last take, and I got pretty much most of the stuff, you know, that needs to be, you know, put this drive system together. Got the pellet block bearings. Got these on eBay for 30 bucks for the pair, and I did have to like take the bearing out and kind of buff the casing a little bit to get them to where they actually would move, because the way it was, you couldn't even get them to where they would, you know, line up with each other. And yeah, I just had to buff them a little bit, and they kind of freed right up. And then got the sprocket hub. Pretty much how this is going to work is it's going to slide onto the axle, and you can put it wherever you want and weld it up. And see, get a 300EX sprocket, and it'll bolt right up. And the axle, I've actually been working on this stuff for several weeks, but I've been going in on my day off and messing with this stuff. This piece of axle's homemade. The hubs are homemade, and they're gonna, you know, this is what keeps them from coming off or rotating, is a 1/2 inch bolt going through. The axle is 1.5 inches, and this piece of bar is actually case hardened, so it's real thin layer, maybe not quite an eighth of an inch all the way around, is hardened steel, and the rest in the inside is just regular steel. So it should be very durable as far as not bending. It should be pretty sturdy as far as that goes. One of the things about welding on the sprocket hub is this material here that I actually got is just happened to be, but it's 4140, and 4140 is, it's not a stainless, it's not, you know, your normal steel. It's pretty much like what most gears and like a transmission or something like that's made out of. And it can be hardened to, I think, up to like 60 Rockwell. But welding to this, of course I need to get some of the chrome off of this. This is a piece like, you know, like a cylinder. I got this for free. You can see here it's damaged. There's several spots like that on it, and it was actually bent on one end as the shade. Like somebody had cut halfway through it and then broke it off somehow. I don't know, but got it all straightened out. It runs really nice. You know, it runs really true. But you remember that like little collet thing that went on here? You had to weld the sprocket on. Got the sprocket welded on there. And the rear chain tensioner, this is what I was talking about, has a set bolt, and the back side of it has this. This is just for turning the center, and you just loosen this up, and I'll turn this, and this will be to adjust the chain tension on the back. I can't do a spring loaded one on the back because this thing has reverse. So if you had a spring loaded one and you got to put it reverse, it's going to slam down that and put all the slack on the back side, which would not have any tension on it. So you gotta have something that's fixed. And then I need to make one yet for the chain that goes in between the motor and transmission. And I've yet to go out to the Saturn and get one off of there to see if I could use it. I need to go to the store, and I went and got to the store and got all kinds of hardware stuff, and got, you know, bolts for these, bolts for this, but I forgot to get metric bolts that goes through here, through the wheel, and I have these wheels actually use lug nuts. They don't use just a nut. So I had to get bolts to, you know, like go on them lug nuts, which is metric. And I actually needed to come out here and kind of see what the thickness of this was and the thickness of the wheel to make sure I don't get, you know, I get bolts the right length. I'm thinking of just bolting the wheel up, you know, slide the nuts through, the bolts through, bolt the wheel up, and then I'll tack the inside of the hub so that the lugs are permanent, you know, the bolts are permanently, not really permanently, you can just knock off the tacks, but you know, they'll stay put so you can put the wheel on and off. Alright, so I've been working on putting the axle in here, and pretty much right now I'm mounting it on the top. It's going to be mounted on the bottom, but just to get the thing so that it's in there straight, basically what I'm doing is measuring from a known location on the frame to the edge of the axle on both sides, and I would assume that this whole thing's probably made in a jig, you know, so measuring off of that is probably a good safe place. And then, you know, kind of eyeballing, like, you know, kind of eyeballing, and you go down the edge of the axle and the rest, something else on the frame. Looks like it should be pretty straight, so it's not going to be dog legging. Kind of messed up. I did not know what size the lug nuts or the bolts would need to be. I was thinking 3/8 was a shade bigger, but actually it's a shade too small. And I don't have a drill bit that's a shade bigger than 3/8, so it's either I drill them out way bigger or wait until I get me a drill bit that fits it. But, you know, so I'm having, you know, I can't get the wheels. I think I made this axle too long once again. Last time I was working on this, I lengthened a 300EX axle because I was putting in a 300EX swing arm and engine and stuff, and I made that axle too long. You know, so it's going to be like a Rhino that's got a widening kit on it. And I moved the axle back some. Like, this probably would have been the location the axle would have been on before. It's probably about an inch back, so it's going to be a little longer. But you know, this right here going to need welded on. Pretty much, you know, I go to put my chain on, get the chain all nice and running true, I'll tack it and take it back out. But I wanted to mention something I was working on a little bit too. Was I fastened down this centrifugal clutch and pulley and all that stuff, and when I tightened this down, it sandwiched the whole thing to the point to where the centrifugal clutch does not move. You can't turn it free. And I got to look in to see how I messed up with this, and which surprises me that they didn't make this top a little meatier. But it there's a bronze bushing in here that is basically the bearing for it, and at the very top there's the steel end, and then there's a clip that holds the whole thing together. Well, anyways, they didn't make the steel top thick enough, and when I sandwiched the whole thing together, it pushed the steel top down against the bronze bushing, and then now it's all seized up. So that's the only thing that holds this thing together, is the fact that you got a bolt on the end. So I'm thinking about just taking that centrifugal clutch off, and I'll get another one of these deals. You know, it's for the back. It's a, you know, a sleeve with, and you weld the bearing or the sprocket on. You know, and this is the one in shaft. I just get another one of these and figure out a way to fasten that harmonic balancer to one of these, and just make a standard shift. The whole idea of that centrifugal clutch on there is that I wanted to make it easier for like my wife, or you know, somebody that's not really used to driving a standard. They just would have been able to start it up and put it in gear and give it gas and make it go, and then they would have to use the clutch to shift it, but you know, that's pretty easy to do. But this thing is going to be extremely low geared. That's a very big sprocket on the back. It's the biggest you can get for a 300EX, and then this transmission is pretty low. Even this final drive within itself is like 4-to-1. You know, it's 4 turns here to 1 turn there in its final drive. So I think it's gonna be, I think it'd be alright anyways as a full standard, but well, I'll finish drilling that out, and so we can get the axle mounted on the bottom. Alright, I got the axle mounted in underneath, and here it is spinning. Right now I just have bolts that's too small going in the hubs, just until I get a drill bit. So a little bit of wobbliness going in them, but that's how wide it is on the back. And just stick out the sides a little bit. I measured from several locations to center this axle up, so they are center. But well, I guess I'll catch you guys later on this.